Hello there, and welcome to another campaign tactic. This one is going to be all about army baiting, that is, tricking your enemies into an ambush. This can be a fantastic way of getting rid of enemy armies that would otherwise be difficult for you to defeat. And thanks to everybody who commented their tactics on the previous video, I'll be making good use of those as time goes by. This tactic is actually one I had planned to do already, but thanks to all these fellas for their input on it. Wereload, Dingo, Lone Wolf, Rambo Dog, and Gabriel. They all mentioned this tactic in one form or another, so thanks to all of you. So let's get into sharpening your tool and turning you into an absolute master baiter. Wait, what? So to perform this dastardly trick, we are going to need two armies. One of them needs to be smaller and weaker. It can really be as small as you like, but bear in mind it will be reinforcing, so it can be helpful if it's a little bit larger. Now this smaller army needs to look appetizing to the enemy and easy for it to kill, so don't make it too strong in comparison to the army you're trying to bait. It needs to be reasonably weaker so that they'll want to try and take it out easily. Even a single lord can perform this role if you want to save money. And then you're going to use your second bigger army that's capable of taking out the enemy army that's being baited, and use them to ambush the enemy as they try to come and kill the smaller army, by using the ambush stance of course. So make sure you're capable of taking out the enemy army you're trying to ambush, otherwise this plan may backfire. Now this can be executed pretty much anywhere, but it is great for pulling armies out of cities, as obviously they're going to get their garrison reinforcement. If we can pull them away from that, then of course it's easier to take out a stationed army. This could be done in the open though. If there's just an army stood out in the open field, we can bait them in the same way just by showing them an easy to kill army, which is actually backed up by a massive ambushing force. So what we want to do is take our smaller force and put it all up in the enemy's face so they can see it and reach it, make sure it's in their movement range, to entice them to come and attack it because it looks weak and vulnerable to their larger superior army. And then you move up your larger ambushing force and put them at least within reinforcement range of the smaller army. So when the enemy tries to run up to that smaller army, they're going to run into your bigger army first. Now in this case I'm maybe a little bit too close to the settlement, but you get the idea of what you want to do. Once you go into ambush stance with the bigger army, they'll become invisible to the enemy and they'll act as if that bigger army isn't even there. However, there are some percentage chances going on, that A, your army may be discovered, or B, the ambush may not even work. So do be prepared for it to potentially fail and think about what you might do if it does, lest you end up putting yourself in a bad spot. So to a couple of examples, here in a Norska campaign, I've got my Throg army, which is pretty small, it's only 10 units, a little bit beaten up, and then I've got my big ambushing force, which is Wulfric, who has a larger, healthier army. So Throg's army is the bait, and Wulfric is the ambusher. So I've moved Wulfric up, put him into ambush stance, which is of course very important. Remember that takes 25% of your movement range, so you can only use 75% of your movement range on a turn if you still want to be able to ambush afterwards. So, just to reiterate, Throg is the bait. This big Kislev army at Fort Ostrosk is the target, and then Wulfric is our ambusher. He's the one who's going to attack that big Kislev army when it comes over to try and take out Throg, who looks all weak and puny and vulnerable. Although, you know, he's Throg, so he ain't going down easy. So, you can see the plan, it's fairly simple to understand. The only army that the AI can see now is Throg. It doesn't realise that Wulfric is there, so if they do try to attack Throg, they should get ambushed. So we'll go ahead and advance the turn and see what the frick happens. And lo and behold, these foolish Kislevites have fallen for my ambush. Now we've got Wulfric and the Throg army attacking this one larger Kislev force. They did bring over a smaller force as well, but because it's ambushed, that smaller force can't help. And you can see the Kislev boys have no chance here, so they will be thoroughly destroyed. I can now take Fort Ostrosk without that massive army in there. The power of the ambush has reigned supreme here. And just to another example with the Empire here, I'm looking to press the attack on the dirty undead Musion forces, who have a large army stationed in a nearby settlement which I want to bait out. So I'm going to send up the bait, which is this smaller army here, and then big boy Balthazar is going to be going full bushwookie in the nearby forest, ready to ambush that Musion army should it come after the bait. Again, make sure you're in reinforcement range. You don't have to be in front of the bait army, you can be behind them as long as the red circle is in front of the bait army, then the ambush will still go off if it should succeed. Now in this case, the Muzion army is fairly tough. It's got a lot of Graveguard in there, they're all gold chevroned, so we're probably going to need the ambush to work to have the best chance of defeating this army. But once we do, we'll have these two Muzion settlements undefended. So when we go ahead and skip the turn, will Muzion come after us? Well, this is a video, so of course they fucking do. Why would I show you it otherwise? No prizes for guessing. As you can see, the Muzion army fell for it. It's the Red Duke himself. We got a chance to get him off the field for a while, which would be nice. And the auto-resolve is saying a pretty much guaranteed victory. So, a very easy way to get rid of an army that would be very difficult to defeat had it still been stationed at that settlement with its garrison to support it. Now in this case, I'm just going to fight it just to show you the ambush battles in case you don't understand them. I'm sure most people do, but we'll go through it anyway. As you can see, the enemy gets a small red deployment zone surrounded by yellow deployment zone, which is of course all ours to do whatever the hell we want with, making it very easy for us to surround and flank the enemy, getting those big morale penalties that will get rid of them that little bit quicker. Now with an ambush battle, you'll be wise to pause the battle straight away to give you time to issue your commands so they all go off at once for the most effective ambush. But realize that your units are hidden at this point. These spearmen, even though they're stood out in the open, they are hidden. These halberds, hidden. These boys are firing. Demigriffs, hidden. Great swords over here, you can see it says they're hidden. So all of your units, until they move or do something, they will be invisible to the enemy. So it gives you time to launch your attack on the enemy and gives them minimal time to react. And then of course, as your assault gets into full swing, you'll start to surround the enemy very quickly. This inflicts lots of leadership penalties, making things rout off that little bit quicker. And because they are the ambushed army in this battle, they also take a leadership penalty throughout the whole battle for that as well, because they are ambushed, and that obviously hurts their leadership. So very often it's easy to break an ambush army pretty quickly because their leadership just can't hold up. So we can rout most of the army off, which is good for us because it means we can rout them instead of killing them, which means less fighting, which means more men in the army to potentially take a settlement or whatever you want to do after the ambush. And that is pretty much the gist of it. Hopefully that all makes sense. Just a couple of other things before we finish. Number one, it can be very useful to check the enemy army movement range. You can do this simply by hovering over their flag and you can see the red outline, which is where they can move to, just like your yellow outline when you're trying to move. This is useful because we can try and get them to use up a lot of their movement range, so that once we've defeated them, they won't be able to retreat too far and we'll be able to finish them off in the same turn, hopefully. It's not essential, but it can be useful to save you chasing armies. And number two, be aware of the things that foil your ambushes. Enemy characters and armies can discover your hidden armies, and you'll get an ambush foiled notification, which means your army was seen and you won't be able to ambush, of course. So if you are going to set an army in ambush, make sure there aren't loads of enemy characters around, otherwise they've all got a percentage chance of discovering you, making it a lot harder to pull this trick off. Of course, you can use your heroes to try and get rid of the bastards. So there you go. Some dirty ambushing tricks to take out enemy AI armies that will, very often, quite honestly, fall for it. So give it a go and hopefully it helps you on your campaigns to dominate the new, old and all kinds of worlds. I hope you've enjoyed this, thanks for watching, I'll see you in the future.